Well, hello everyone, this is Carmen with Coffee with Carmen. I'm sitting here. I made me a nice coffee. It's pretty strong with some whipped cream and cinnamon. And I decided to put a little orange straw in here. It's delicious. Perfect. Perfect for the season. It's getting cooler. I know I mentioned last time about my son Ezekiel's clothing line, Sunday Apparel. I'm wearing one of his hoodies. It has a star with the SA symbol for Sunday Apparel. Go look it up, look into it and see what you can find for yourself. You might find something you like. And just so you know, proceeds, a percentage do go to his older brother Brian's nonprofit, the Clearwater Project. So not only are you supporting and supporting faith, but also the Clearwater Project, who they take care of people who do not have clean water or toilets or anything like we have here that we take for granted. I mentioned it before, just 3-4 hours north. There's people who don't have what we have. So go look into the Clearwater Project, support them as well. Even if you buy something from Sunday Apparel, percentage goes to that. So just wanted to put it out there. I'm always, since I've encouraged my children to have a voice and to move forward in what they believe and to know that God speaks to them, even though it takes time, everything takes time. And that's my topic today, is waiting and being patient when God is showing us things. We believe that he's speaking to us, because he does speak to all of us, but we have to learn to have a listening ear for him. And the first verse that I want to read, I just wanted to read it because a lot of us know it, is Isaiah 40:31. It says, "But they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings of eagles. They shall run and not be weary, and they shall walk and not faint." So how often are we waiting? And we're waiting and we're waiting, and our patience is running out. But God is saying, those who wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. He gives you new strength every day. He gives you new breath every day. Every day is a new beginning. So I want to remind you of that. And he says, they mount up like wings of eagles. Like if you ever watch anything on eagles, you get to see their strength and how they even encourage your young. It's time for you to go and fly. And so that's how God is with us. He wants us to move forward. He wants us to believe. He wants us to mount up like wings of eagles, that they shall run and not be weary, but they shall walk and not faint. And that we are his children, so he reminds us of that. But the story I wanted to talk about today is that of Abraham. Abram, before his name was Abraham. And I know it back in Genesis chapter 12, God speaks to Abraham, and he says to him, he says, "The Lord had said to Abram, leave your country, your people, and your father's household, and go to the land, and I will show you. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whosoever curses you, I will curse, and all people on earth will be blessed through you." How often is God asking us to do something and we're waiting? He's reminding us, he's reminding us that he spoke to us just like he spoke to Abram here. And I had my Bible where I needed it, but the wind's blowing, the window's open, and my pages flipped. But I know one thing, that from this, God said this to Abram, chapter 12, and it wasn't till chapter 22 where God promised him his son Isaac. And in between the chapters here, let me see if I can find it now. God promises, as he looks up into the sky, how that the stars were, his lineage, and how he was going to bless them. And as I was reading about Abram before he became Abraham, you know what? He trusted God. He trusted him to the point where he did leave his family. He did take his nephew Lot with him. And at one point he calls him his brother. And I was kind of like saying, why is it his nephew, but he calls him brother? And I just thought, you know, I guess brethren then was just a way of saying relative. It's a way of saying family. And but no, I wanted to read here where as Abraham keeps moving forward and he keeps trusting God through it all, God does speak to him and tells him in chapter 15, he says, after this word, the word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision. He says, do not be afraid, Abram. I am your shield, your very great reward. And so he's reminding him not to be afraid, to keep moving forward, that he's his shield. He's reminding him that, you know, he's not alone. And how often is God reminding us of that? Reminding us that we shouldn't get impatient with what he's doing in our lives. And I'm saying this because, you know, God, as you know, I have not been employed since the end of March. And through that season, you know, I've been with my mom, and also just recently, my son, my grandson was born early, and he didn't make it. God decided to take him with him to heaven, and these are the things that we go through in life where we don't understand, but God is reminding us that he's in charge and how we need to keep moving forward. And as he makes his promises, we have to keep believing him and knowing that even though these things happen, he's still in control of everything. And that's the thing that he was showing Abraham, that even though his wife Sarah couldn't have children, and this story is between, you know, chapter 12 through 22 of Genesis, where God continues to remind Abraham that he's giving him this promise, that he's giving him a son. And then in chapter 22, it speaks on how, it says, sometime later God tested Abraham, and he said to him, Abraham, here I am, he replied. Then God said, take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the region of Moriah, sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains I will tell you about. And can you imagine what Abraham was thinking when God said that to him? He's telling him, you know, the son I promised you, the one that I'm promising that every generation will be blessed. Well, I'm asking you, take up your son, sacrifice him. And so what does Abraham do? It says, early the next morning, Abraham got up and saddled his donkey. He took with him 2 of his servants and his son Isaac. And you know, when I read that, when it says that he took up 2 of his servants and his son Isaac, I thought, you know, how great is God? Like here, Abraham is being obedient. He takes 2 servants. And I believe that God always wants people to see his goodness, to see how he keeps his promise, to see how he works. When we're willing to be obedient, even though we don't see it, even though we're walking in faith and we're being patient through everything. And then it says here, when he had cut enough wood for the burnt offering, he sent out for the place God had told him about. So see, after he prepared, you know, what do? How does God prepare us? We read his word. We write down what he's showing us. This is how we learn to trust him, and we learn to be patient, and we learn to be obedient, and we learn to walk forward even when we don't know or we don't understand what's going on. Even at this time, what happened just last week, you know, I cried, you know, of course I did, you know, but you know, can you imagine how Abraham felt? Like here he's had his son, and God is asking him, take him up to the mountain and sacrifice your son. And what does he do? He takes 2 servants with him. They will be the witnesses of God's faithfulness. And God is always allowing those around us. Those are the witnesses that see how God moves through the things that happen in our lives, through the times that we don't understand everything that's going on. And the decisions, the things that God decides will happen. So, and as you all know, it's not my first grandson that's in heaven. I actually have three grandsons in heaven with God. So let's see here. Then it says, on the third day, Abraham looked up and saw the place in the distance. He said to his servant, stay here with the donkey while I and the boy go over there. We will worship and then we will come back to you. And this is verse 6 that I'm reading now. Abraham took the wood for the burnt offering and placed it on his son Isaac, and he himself carried the fire and the knife. As the two of them went on together, Isaac spoke up and said to his father Abraham, Father. Yes, my son, Abraham replied. The fire and the wood are here, Isaac said, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering? Now, can you imagine how here Isaac is asking his father, and Isaac is getting ready to witness the faithfulness of God, the faith that his father Abraham has to be willing to be obedient, willing to go, keep moving forward, being patient, knowing that God will meet him there. Well, I am telling you, God will meet you there. He will make sure that all your needs are met, all your tears are wiped up, that everything that you're talking to him about, he's listening. He's listening to you, just like he listens to me. I know he's listening to me. You know, I moved forward from my workplace through obedience, through hearing him. And even though I prepared, there comes a time where you're like, okay, God, you know, what's the next step? Because, you know, even though I prepared ahead of time, there's a lot here I still, and when I use the word I am thinking like God reminds me, you're not taking care of it. God reminds me, I will, just like I did for Abraham. And then it says here, yes, my son, Abraham replied. The fire and the wood are here, Isaac said, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering? What does his father Abraham say? Abraham answered, God himself will provide the lamb for the burnt offering, my son. And the two of them went on together. How powerful is that? Oh my God, it brings me to tears. How powerful is that to know that you heard God and you know he's going to meet you there. That you know that as you move forward believing that he's going to meet you there. That the provision will be there because you're willing to walk patiently through obedience, trusting the Lord, just like Abraham did. Can you imagine it's his only son? And he tells him, God will meet us there. You know, God will meet you there. Don't lose faith. You know, don't lose faith. Keep moving forward. Keep knowing that he will. And then it says here, when they reached the place God had told him about, Abraham built an altar there and arranged the wool on it. He bound his son Isaac and laid him on the altar on top of the wood. Then he reached out his hand and took the knife to slay his son. Can you imagine what Isaac must have been thinking? I mean, can you imagine when you're waiting and you know that you don't know what's next, but yet you just know that as you're working with what you have and you're getting ready to use your last, let's say your last dollar, or your last piece of hope, your last piece of faith, and you just know, like, God, here it is, here it is. And what does God do with that? This is what God did. It says in verse, it says here in verse 10, it says, then he reached out his hand and took the knife, this is Abraham, to slay his son. But the angel of the Lord called out to him from heaven, and he says, Abraham, Abraham. And what did Abraham say? He says, here I am. Can you imagine if God's calling out your name? He just wants you to use your voice and say, here I am. You know? And then he gives you that peace through the wait, through the patience, as you're waiting, as you're trusting, as you're knowing that he's faithful, as you're being obedient to his word that he's given you to move forward, even though you don't see it. Just like Abraham, he knew that God would meet him there. I want you to know God will meet you there. And he says, here I am, he replied. He says, do not lay a hand on the boy. He said, do not do anything to him. Now I have not withheld from me. He says here, hold on. He says, do not lay a hand on the boy. He said, do not do anything to him. Now I know that you fear God, because you have not withheld from me your son, your only son. Abraham looked up, and there in the thick he saw a ram caught by his horns. He went over and took the ram and sacrificed it as a burnt offering instead of his son. So Abraham called that place to the Lord, will provide. And to this day it is said, on the mountain of the Lord it will be provided. The angel of the Lord called to Abraham from heaven a second time and said, I swear by myself, declares the Lord, that because you have done this and have not withheld your son, your only son, I will surely bless you and make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky and as the sand on the seashore. Your descendants will take possession of the cities of their enemies, and through your offspring all nations on earth will be blessed, because you have obeyed me. Wow. Can you imagine how Abraham was feeling at that moment? Knowing that he was obedient to God. He took 2 witnesses with him, his servants, and they were his witnesses, so they would know that not only was Abraham obedient to the Lord, but God was faithful. Faithful in the yes, faithful in your yes. You know, God just wants you to say yes to him. He wants you to use your voice to spread his word, to share who he is, to share his son, so that people know that your life is about salvation. It's about saying yes, about letting go, allowing God forgives you from those things that hold you bound, that make you believe that there's no hope. There's hope through his son, Jesus Christ. Just like Abraham knew that he could trust God. He knew that when he got there, that God would provide. And not only that, his son Isaac witnessed the faithfulness of God. Can you imagine your children, your children's children, every generation will witness the faithfulness of God? Because you're willing to say yes to him, no matter what it is. God is doing a new thing. God is doing a new thing. And he just needs you to say yes. He needs you to say your voice. Say it with your voice. No one can say it but you. No one. And the other thing, you need to open his word. You need to flip these pages. You need to allow them to become alive in you, so that people can witness God through you, just like the servants did. They witnessed God through Abraham's promise. They witnessed what God did. Not just that, but his son. And your children, like I'm saying, you know, like I say, you know, life hasn't been easy. We all make choices. Like I always say, I chose to be a single parent. But God knows why I decided that. I knew that God would take care of everything, because that's what I always witnessed him do that. So I want you to allow him to work through you. I wrote down back in August, it says, hearing God's voice, obedience. It's an account of instant obeying, the willing and active submission to God's authority, rooted in love, trust for him, which involves hearing. Not only hearing, but being active in it, acting on his divine instruction, just like Abraham did. Acting on his divine instruction. How can we do that if we're not listening? It's like Abraham said, here I am, here I am. He wants us to say that, here I am, here I am. Because without us doing that, how can we help others witness his faithfulness? So I, you know, I wasn't sure what I was gonna teach on today. I had written on something else, and a friend of mine, she actually, Dr. Ross, she sent me something, and then I said to her, I'm sitting here not sure. I've written different things, not sure exactly what I'm going to speak on. And she says, well, what about God's patience through the wait? And then I remembered I had already written about that. And I flipped my journal notebook pages. As you know, I have a habit of not writing in my Bibles. I'll put little stars next to key verses. But I write in my journal a lot. It's messy because maybe how my Bible should look, my Bibles, but they don't, you know, because I do it all in my journal. I make sure my journal looks messy and has arrows and all this other stuff. But I just, you know, God reminded me through her that I had already written on it. Why? Because through my own lifetime, I've been patient, I've been obedient, God's been faithful through it all, through it all. And like I encourage my own children to move forward and to listen to God and to hear his voice. When they come to me and ask me a question, I'll ask them, well, have you asked God yet? Have you heard what he said? Because I'm just another voice, I tell them. We all have our opinions, but what is God telling you? I'm asking you now, what is God saying to you? And you know, if you don't know God, I'm inviting you to say yes to him today. Say yes to his son, Jesus Christ. Allow him to be a part of you. He lifts everything off of you. You know, anything and everything that's spoken against you, he lifts that off you because he made you. His breath is within you. And how can a God who breathes within you leave you alone, allow you to stand alone, feeling helpless, feeling like there's no hope? So I want to encourage you today to give it all to him. Say yes to him today. And through him and through his son Jesus, there's always hope. I always say there's always hope in Jesus. So I want to remind you of that. I'm going to say it again. I'm going to take a sip first. I want to remind you that there's always hope in Jesus. And God bless you. God bless you. God bless you.